So to get started, I just want to show off some art supplies here. In front of me, I have a oil and acrylic painting pad. Here I have a Stay Wet palette. The Stay Wet palette is a wet sponge and a particular paper. And since we're working with acrylics, this palette helps the paint stay wet. So for example, these paints have been wet since earlier today. It's been quite a few hours and they're still wet and they will stay wet for days to come. And as long as I every once in a while check it out, if my sponge is getting too dry, I can wet it and it will make sure that my paints stay wet. So if you enjoy working with acrylic paints, I definitely recommend getting a Stay Wet palette. I also have 2 jars of water. One jar will collect all of my dirty paint, and then after I clean my brush with the dirty water, I will use this one to get any remaining paint off of my brush so that I'm always using a clean brush. Today I will be using a marker. You don't need a marker, but this is just so that you're able to see in the video what I'm drawing when we create the color wheel. And then here is a little shout out to Erica, who gifted me this beautiful paintbrush holder. So I definitely love this. I believe she got it off of Etsy if anyone is interested in having their own. But so to get started, I'm going to go ahead and take one of the papers out of my canvas pad here and place this to the side. So the canvas pad is canvas paper, so it's a lot thicker than regular paper, and it has some texture. We have a smooth side and a rough side. To get started, we're going to start with our color wheel. What you're going to want to do is find approximately the middle of your paper and put a little dot. So I'm just going to eyeball it. If you want to use a ruler, you're more than welcome, but you do not need to be perfect with this. So you just create a little point in the center of your paper. Then in this section right here, you're going to draw a line halfway up. Now we're going to create almost like a peace sign. So a line here and a line here. But when you do it, you want to make sure that you are going to have an even amount of space between each third section. So I would say about there. And once again, you're going to draw the same length on each one. It does not have to be perfect. Once you have your 3 lines, you're now going to create a little area of where you would place your primary colors. So about here, I will take up about this much space for my red. Then we have blue, and yellow. And then you're going to create another area right above for a second spot for your primary colors. So once again, this will be red, this will be blue. And like I said, I'm using a marker so that you can see it in the video. But when you do yours, you can use a pencil and draw it as light as possible so that you don't see it when you paint over it. Okay? Now, you're going to put a space here, here, and here. And those are for your secondary colors. So you can do any shape you want. You can do a circle, you can do another rectangle. I'm going to do a circle. And these are going to be your secondary colors. So I'll just put a number 2 to mark them. Now we're going to create a circle. Well, almost a circle. So from yellow to red, I'm just going to hold my hand steady and kind of just go like this. And try to make it as wide as possible. Okay, then I'll turn my paper and do the same thing from red to blue. And then blue to yellow. So now that we have our main circle, now that we have our circle, we're going to draw circles along these lines. To even it out, we'll start in the middle. So I have one in the middle, and now I'll place 2 more on the side. And now we'll do the same thing on these 2. So I'll start in the middle, and then 2 more on this side, and 2 more on this side. And then lastly on this side, kind of eyeball it for where the middle is. 2 on this side, and 2 on this side. And then these colors will be our different shades and tertiary colors. So let's go ahead and get started. So you just can grab any size brush. Go ahead and wet it. And I will start with the colors that are furthest away from me so that I'm not getting my hands dirty. I'll go ahead and start with red. So we have a primary red right here and a primary red right here. Make sure to clean your brush in between, or you can just grab another brush. Now I'll go in with my yellow. And lastly, blue. So there you have it. We have our primary colors. Now let's go ahead and make our secondary colors. To begin with our secondary colors, what you'll do is take about 50% yellow and 50% red. So a even amount of yellow and an even amount of red, and that should give us our purest secondary color. So I used yellow and blue. Now depending on what type of blue you use or what type of red you use, you will get different types of greens and purples. So now I will do red and yellow. So when you're painting, depending on how much water you have on your brush, will mess with how translucent it is when you place it on your canvas. So if you can get your paintbrush to be as dry as possible, it will be more opaque. Okay, lastly is our blue and red. Very interesting purple. Going to try it with this red here, see if it makes a little bit of a difference. Okay, so then you have our secondary colors. Now let's go ahead and do our tertiary color. I will start with yellow and red. So when doing your tertiary colors, what you want to do is when you start with yellow, for example, you want to have the least amount of red here, and then you'll add a little bit more red in this one, and a little bit more red to this one, and a little bit more red to this one, and a little bit more red to this one. So it'll be almost pure yellow, and then as it gradually goes, it'll get to the purest form of red. So I will go ahead and start with my yellow. And add just a tiny bit of red. And then I'll add a little bit more. Load up my yellow. And lastly, all right. Now let's go ahead and do red to blue. I'm going to use this one. Tiny bit of blue. Oh, this one's more purpley compared to this one. So this one should probably be there. Hey baby, what you doing? Making a video. What are you doing? Okay. Love you. And then lastly, from yellow to blue. And the amount of shades that you can get is endless. So there's no right or wrong way of doing this, just as long as it's from light to dark. So there you are, and you just created a color wheel. Next up is creating a visual diary.